most powerful human firewall is the one that has an internal understanding of phishing and believes it helps me personally and professionally. Therefore, it carries forward in time and you're changing behaviors in the long run. Not the least to mention, it's also more fun.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome back to the podcast. This is where we explore the stories and insights of leaders making an impact in technology and business. I'm your host, Darren, and today I'm really excited to be joined by the one and only Craig Taylor, who is the co-founder and CEO of CyberHoot. Craig brings nearly 25 years of experience in cybersecurity. He's been CISSP certified since 2001 and has held leadership roles at major organizations like CSC, JP Morgan Chase, and VistaPrint. In 2014, he co-founded CyberHoot, a platform that takes a very different approach to security awareness training. Instead of relying on punitive gotcha phishing tests where you accidentally click that link and you're like, oops, I failed the test, CyberHoot uses psychology-driven positive reinforcement and gamified learning to help users actually enjoy becoming more security savvy. So today, CyberHoot serves, I believe, more than 80,000 users, and you can correct me if I'm wrong when I get there, Craig, but with microlearning, phishing simulations, dark web monitoring, and automated awareness programs. So, Craig, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Darren, it's great to be here. Thanks for that intro, and you hit the nail on the head. 80,000 users, we just crossed that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How fast was that scale from the 45,000 to the 80,000?
I think that was maybe over the last year and a half. We've had some dramatic increases. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. So where are you calling in from today?
Hampton, New Hampshire, just north of Boston, south of Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Okay. Well, very nice. So to start, let's just talk about CyberHoot in general. What's your role at CyberHoot and how does that fit into the bigger picture of the company?
So I'm the CEO here and have the majority stake in the company, but it's 51-49 with my co-founders, the other co-founders. And my role is partnerships, retention, big ideas on, improving how we do cyber literacy training, and everything in between. We're a small team and we have a lot of hats that we wear every day. So it seems to work out really well. I have very strong co-founders.
Gotcha. And so you said 51-49, so two co-founders?
Actually, no, there's the other two co-founders are part of a separate company that does development, and we partnered together to bring this to market. And so they own 100% of their company and 49% of my company, of our company.
Gotcha. All right. And so they do all the development of your company, or do you also have your own in-house?
Well, they're our development shop, so
Okay.
it's a tight partnership with additional resources that they have within their development company, serving CyberHoot and a few other projects.
Okay. So for all those aspiring entrepreneurs out there, what was the turning point that made you decide to co-found CyberHoot back in 2014?
That's an easy one. For me, it was being fired and having to do some internal, what do I want to do with my life now that I've been fired unceremoniously from this company? And reality struck pretty hard. I was working in enterprises for the, bulk of 20 years. And I thought, you know what? It would be great to be the master of my own destiny here and try to address some critical gaps we had identified. When you're in 2014, if you go back in time, enterprises were doing a great job with awareness training and brute forcing the cyber literacy skills their employees needed. At least it was reasonable at that time. They've thrown a lot of people at it and a lot of technology, but the small to medium-sized businesses were getting breached just whenever they were targeted. And as hackers switched their focus from enterprises who were, Fort Knoxes of the world, to the mid-market and smaller, they were largely being successful. And it could be anything from buying, I don't have it out, but I have $25,000 in $100 gift cards when someone new was hired at a company and they were targeted to buy gift cards from the president. Make sure you do this and don't tell anyone because it's a secret project. To business email compromise and ransomware events, we were seeing the trajectory. and the reality was it's not rocket science. It's pretty common sense stuff with a little bit of awareness, a little bit of knowledge thrown in. And that wasn't happening, right? You could graduate from any Ivy League school and not have cyber literacy training. You'd have computer literacy. So the turning point was both the termination and the desire to address this big gap for an underserved community of users. And we thought, initially we thought we could probably do something that's at least equivalent of what's on the market. And if you were to fast forward like 4 or 5 years, we kept trying to do a better job of that gotcha fish testing. And it was so difficult and it was so cumbersome and it didn't really change the industry. We pivoted to from punishment to positive reinforcement. And that was the aha moment, the birth of really a new approach. We filed a patent on it, but we haven't accepted, it hasn't been approved yet. And it really was a multidisciplinary approach at that time. It took my psychology background from 30 years ago, my desire to educate people, our desire to educate people, and then, a positive reinforcement approach to phishing simulations is, if you read the literature, everything boils down to social engineering delivered via email as the primary breach factor. So that in a nutshell is how we got to, 2019, 2020 timeframe. And then it's been just growing it since then.
Okay. And that actually is a good segue into the next question because you have a background in psychology. So when you talk about your experience in psychology, how has that shaped the way that you built CyberHoot's training approach and its traditional models? You kind of hinted at the fact that you're, rewarding instead of punishing, but can you go into
Yes.
more detail into that or provide more info?
Yeah. So about 75 years ago now, B.F. Skinner did some studies on dogs and animals and humans. And he said, any behavior that you reinforce has a higher likelihood of being repeated. It's that simple. And if you punish behaviors, it extinguishes them at that moment for a moment, but it doesn't carry forward in time. And so when you think about that from a psychology perspective and you apply it to the cybersecurity industry, what has been our go-to methodology? It's been to punish bad behaviors to eliminate them. And when they return, you just make bigger punishments and you do it more often, right? I have companies that come to us at CyberHoot and they're doing a fake email phishing test every week against their employees. And the justification is that, the cost of a ransomware breach or a business email compromise or a compromise of our networks is so great, it's justified no matter the outcome of how people feel, how they perform, what they internalize. And so we looked at this and we said, you know what? There's a lot of psychology that says if you want to change behaviors for the long run, right? If you want to, you have to reward the good behaviors you want to see more of. To put it another way, we looked at the analogy. There's a famous old metaphor of teach a person, feed a person a fish today, feed them for today. Teach them how to fish today, feed them for a lifetime, right? And that's FISH. But it was such a logical segue to what we do, where if you teach people how phishing works and why it's important and how to internalize these things by rewarding the good behaviors and practicing these good behaviors, then you're going to reinforce those good behaviors. And that's your most powerful human firewall, is the one that has an internal understanding of phishing and believes it helps me personally and professionally. Therefore, it carries forward in time and you're changing behaviors in the long run. Not the least to mention, it's also more fun to do it that way, right? And I can give you dozens of analogies, but I have one in particular that I'm very fond of. You might remember about dog training.
Go ahead. You want to say it?
Sure. So if you went to a dog park with your dog, and this applies to, child rearing, parenting, that sort of thing, and you want to teach your dog some behaviors, right? Come, sit, stay, all that stuff. You could use a shock collar, I suppose, but the dog will not want to go back to the dog park and may in fact shut down and not internalize the behaviors, just be fearful. Or better still, you can use treats, right? Little food treats to say, okay, great, come. Intermittent reward is very powerful. So give them a treat every time, and then every second time, and every fifth time. And eventually the dog internalizes, I sometimes get a treat, and they come every time. It works great. And the dog enjoys it, right? So, and apply that to your employees. If you want them not to click, teach them how all the different positive interactions with an email that they should have with the sender and the subject and the emotionality and the urgency, and have them repeat that repeatedly over time with minor little rewards to get engagement. And it works. They actually repeat those behaviors in their inboxes, and they become more and more confident, secure, and let's not forget efficient, right? We want our employees to be efficiently processing email, not sweating over is this a fish? Is it not a fish? And so the dog analogy works perfectly, amazingly well. It's not that I'm comparing employees to dogs. No, I'm saying that the positive reinforcement works universally in this world.
I get that. And to go back to something you said earlier, which I thought was funny, it was like only in the IT and cybersecurity industry do you have to clarify that fish is with an FISH and not for PHISH. So I thought that was
That's
really
right.
good.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that was kind of interesting, going back to the positive reinforcement. So is it positive reinforcement only, or is it positive and negative, your approach?
Well, negative reinforcement is sometimes misunderstood from a psychology perspective. I'll give you the prime example of how to understand negative reinforcement. It makes a behavior happen by the elimination of a stimulus. So, negative reinforcement is a fire alarm in a building. It's so loud and piercing, you have to do something to stop the reinforcement, the negative experience of that. So, you leave the building. And then by leaving it, you're reinforcing the behavior of leaving the building because of this negative stimulus. Positive reinforcement is the opposite. When you put a quarter in a slot machine and you keep pulling it, eventually you win something. A little bit, a lot, depends. But that's positive reinforcement. Not to be confused with punishment. Punishment is a stimulus applied in a point in time against someone clicking on something. You failed a phishing test pops up on your screen, and you're like, oh no, now I have a 45-minute video to watch. Okay, press play. Let's go get some coffee. I'll come back when this is done, right? There's a study, a Black Hat conference, a hacker conference presented every year in Las Vegas just last week, where security researchers measured how much time do people watch the video they're assigned after they fail a phishing test. Could be a 45-minute video, could be a 10-minute video. The average person, the 50th percentile, was 10 seconds or less
Well,
that
that's
they
even worse
watched at
than
their attention. Yeah,
that's even worse than most YouTube videos. I feel like everybody's goal is to at least get them to 30 seconds.
right.
So
But
that pretty much proves it's inefficient.
it's not just inefficient, it doesn't work, period. Full stop. It does not work. There's a study from 2 years prior at the University of Zurich which said in their final conclusions, actually doing the fake email phishing tests and the simplified domains that you have to use for it, where you get an email from Microsoft.com, but it's from account resets are us, and it's saying you need to reset your password in Microsoft. People get trained that those domain names are so wrong that that's all they have to find. They have to find a completely inappropriate domain name for an email from a vendor. That's not how phishing works. It's micro changes to that domain name. It's one letter differences. Netflix missing an I, or Microsoft with an R and an N combined for an M in Microsoft. That's what hackers are doing. And that study in Zurich said people actually click more often after all of this fake email phish testing, not less, in their study. And it corresponded with this latest study from the University of Chicago and San Diego, where they studied 20,000 users. And they said the difference that they could find, the best difference they could find, was 1.7% improvement from a control group that got no training versus 19,000 employees at the healthcare provider for 8 months. And by the way, along the way, they were able to get 55% of the users to click on fake email phishing tests through the applying principles of psychology, right? Changes to dress code was one of their favorites that everyone clicked on, you know. So it just doesn't work. You need to reinforce this Rubik, set of rules for reading an email, looking at the email. You have to reinforce the realism of the domain names that hackers will use to do these things. And only when you reinforce the specific knowledge and behaviors over and over through practicing, right? Just like going to the gym and doing this muscle memory on a drill 5 times, 10 times, you're going to build that resiliency into your employees. And if you can do it in ways that they don't disengage, because the third conclusion in that latest study in Las Vegas was that the 10 seconds of video watching was due to disengagement. People disengage because they're disgusted both with the testing and their own performance. And so they're like, I give up. I'm not going to learn this stuff. It's too difficult. I can't do this. It's too trickery. They're tricking me. They're supposed to make my life better, not worse. And they're sending us these gotcha emails. And so they disengage. Um, you have to reward engagement in order for people to engage and then learn these skills, which aren't difficult to learn when you present them with the correct knowledge. That's what we've learned at CyberHoot over the last 5 years.
Well, and I think that's really amazing because one of the things that I have been surprised about that hackers don't use. So if you are a hacker on the show, please do it for ethical
Don't give them more
reasons.
tips. Are you going to
But
give them a tip?
well,
You're gonna-
the one thing I've always been surprised about is the lowercase L versus capital I.
Yes.
Right. I mean that truly is indistinguishable to the human eye until you
Can
click
be.
the
Yeah.
link because, just thinking of anything, it really just from a visual standpoint, you can't identify it. Even if you hover over the link and look for what it is, it would all look legitimate. But for all of you penetration testers out there, that's a good one to add to your testing bed for sure. So
Yes.
let's go ahead and switch over to industry trends. So what major shifts are you seeing right now in the cybersecurity awareness and training world?
Well, the shifts are really sort of incremental, I guess. When you look at some of the studies on how companies are breached, there's a large report that comes out once a year from the Verizon Data Breach Report, is what we call it, DBIR, and they analyze all of the breach data from the last 20 years. They said, it's still the same things that are leading to breaches. It's human firewalls failing, basically by clicking on links in emails, and weak password hygiene. Those are the number one and number two. And so the industry hasn't had to change much in order to address those things. But here's where it has gotten worse. AI, artificial intelligence, is being used by bad actors, bad guys, to create more believable fake emails to send to inboxes. So if they can target your social media and ingest that, then they can send you 5 to 10 spear phishing attacks until you click on something that appeals to your sensibilities. So the attacks are getting more targeted, more frequent, and when they're successful, more damaging. Once a single person clicks on a link in a fake email phishing test, or a legitimate, not a phishing test, but a fake, but an attack from a hacker, the impact of that breach is much larger today than it was 5 years ago, than it was 10 years ago. If you go back 10 years and you had a ransomware event, it was what we called single extortion. What do I mean by extortion? They would encrypt your files and present big red screens of death to you that say, if you don't pay the ransom, you will not get your data back, right? But good IT departments knew that this was happening and they've been preparing for that. And they've done these wonderful jobs of backing up your data. And boom, they would restore the data from their backup and all would be well in the world again. Now, fast forward a few years, and the hackers realize, well, what if we steal the data that we encrypt before we encrypt it? And so we can double extort you. They would encrypt the data, present the red screen, and if you restored your data, they would either say, well, we can release it now to the internet. If let's say you're a law firm or a CPA firm, you've got a lot of sensitive critical data, and it would be terribly embarrassing to your law firm or your accounting firm if your client's data was public knowledge all of a sudden. So that was the second, or the double extortion, and you couldn't recover from that because you had to pay the ransom, or you wouldn't, or they would release the data, even if you did that. Now, advance a few more years, and they were also deleting databases, or backups rather, of your files if they could get to the backups online. So they were removing the ability for companies to back up to restore their data. They were also exfiltrating the data so they could release it to the internet. And in a third case, an interesting case, I think last fall, a financial firm, which is highly regulated, financial firms are regulated, you know this, Darren. There
Yeah.
was a triple extortion performed on them, which is, number one, they deleted the backups and they couldn't restore their files. Then they threatened to release it to the internet, and the company still didn't pay. And so they reported the company to the FTC, and the company was fined for not reporting a breach, because there's an obligation now under the financial regulatory community if you're breached and your client data is exposed, you have to report it to the FTC and to your customers. And they were threatened with this to be reported to the FTC if they didn't pay the ransom. So it was triple extortion. It's crazy. It just keeps advancing. But at the end of the day, it's still the same attack methods. It's phishing attacks, people click, people grant access, or it's weak authentication with poor password hygiene or lack of multi-factor authentication. So those are some of the trends we're seeing, and the damage is more significant. So, we're just still trying to fight by educating the human firewall to build resilience in there.
Well, and so let's drill into that a little bit more. So how do you connect what CyberHoot does to that exact example? So when you're talking about the training of how CyberHoot does the positive reinforcement, how
Mhm.
does that make sure that triple extortion doesn't occur?
Well, it's to prevent the initial breach, right? Ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to stop end users from clicking, but we're trying to teach them when and why and how they may click or they cannot click. And that the idea there is to teach them that, when an email comes in, you have to look at the sender to verify, is that sender legitimate? Is the domain, has it been, typo squatted or changed with one letter off? Your example of an I for an L or an L for an I, or combination of letters, or an S on the end of a domain name is another favorite of many companies. And in the most advanced cases, they can change the UTF-8 encoding, which says, what if we put an A for a Cyrillic A, which is a different domain name than an actual A in the English language? So there's all kinds of different ways they do that. Some are more difficult than others. But then we talk through the subject line. Is it urgent, emotional? Is there anything too good to be true? Is it unexpected? The greeting can be generic or it can be, Dear Darren. There's an urgency and emotionality that is most often built into phishing emails because hackers and security researchers know people make more mistakes when they react to something. If you react to someone cutting you off in traffic, you're probably not going to react in a very kind way, I would argue. But if you respond and wonder, oh, maybe that person's got a pregnant wife in the car and they're heading to the hospital, and you think about it for a moment, you might respond very differently as you would respond differently in your email. If you give yourself pause, if you take a deep breath and you think, does this make any sense? I've done dozens of investigations of breaches, and to a person, they say, in retrospect, I should never have clicked. There were clear signs that I missed, right? People need to not react to emails in real time. They need to respond thoughtfully. We teach that with our exercises. We teach how to inspect URLs in or links in an email, right? If there's a bit.ly link for this unexpected email, that's a huge red flag. Bit.ly, BITLY, with some characters after it, is a URL shortening tool. Is meant to not have you type in a 25 character URL, but it also hides the ultimate destination. It's another reason why all you IT people out there, stop hiding the destination URLs from your users with this link protection mechanism, because you're removing the ability for someone to understand where that link takes them, right? There's URL defense in Microsoft. Barracuda has some URL rewriting. The idea is they're trying to sandbox it a little bit, but in doing so, you're hiding it from the end user. So you're assuming that they have no way of learning this stuff. I think that users are a lot smarter than we accommodate, and we should allow them to read those URLs and at least make an intelligent decision on their own. So hopefully this is giving you a sense for the Hootfish exercise creates this muscle memory of going through a rubric, a 6 or 7 question approach to each email. And when it becomes like second nature, we find people can go from a minute of doing this simulated exercise in our platform down to as little as 15 seconds, where they become so efficient at, oh, the sender, no, that looks good, safe. Subject, unsafe. Reading, unsafe. All the way through. It takes 10 to 15 seconds, but we're creating that rubric and that muscle memory so that when they get that really appealing email, right? Somebody's identified their social media. They have a daughter who's 20 and it's her birthday coming up, and there's a Taylor Swift concert nearby, and they offer, Taylor Swift tickets for the first 10 people to click a link. It doesn't make sense because that URL just doesn't add up. I really want to click, but I know better now. So delete, and so that's where we want to get to, I think, ultimately with our users.
Well, and I think that's where people say knowledge is power. It's not only for the ability to grow businesses, but also just to protect businesses and what they do.
Exactly right. And we're trying to teach just those modicum of knowledge pieces around even password hygiene, right? When you teach people in our videos and in our exercises that using the same password root and then putting a prefix or a suffix on that password, and that's how you remember to go to this, log into this account and that account. Well, when any website is breached out there, we let the users know the hacker can sometimes read that root password and the prefix suffix, so they know what your predictability is, and they can use that then to log into other accounts. So the human mind being what it is, you need to adopt a password manager, and that's another thing we push in our videos is adopting password managers, multi-factor authentication, and where it becomes available, passkeys are really the future of authentication. So we're teaching all of these basic skills to help address the top two or three critical risks that are out there. And we find that people actually appreciate learning this stuff in a rewarding and positive reinforcement way. So the engagement levels are through the roof with CyberHoot.
Do you have an actual stat on that, like compared to like a regular program in regards to engagement versus CyberHoot? Is there a percent that you can throw out there?
I don't have a scientific study or a number that I can share with you, but I can tell you that the average person in our Hootfish phishing simulation has a range of a minute and a half down to as little as 30 seconds once they get 15 to 30 seconds once they get very proficient at it. And that is a force, in order to complete the assignment, which we remind you over and over again until you do, and we escalate to your management, and we can get you, we can get a stat for every company that is close to 100% for people having done their assignments. That compares to what we saw earlier, I mentioned earlier, is under 10 seconds to watch a video when someone has failed a phishing test. So you've got a minute and a half or 30 seconds to a minute and a half of interactivity and engagement to complete an assignment. We regularly see companies at 100%. I have a Goodwill company that's in CyberHoot, and they're always at 100% for their videos and their Hootfish. And you think about Goodwill, well, are these highly technical people? They're at a reselling used goods place, and they get, I guess they have emails there for internal communications, and yet they're at 100% all the time. It's amazing to see that because their cyber literacy skills are seriously ingrained now.
Yeah, that's a really high level when well, you can't do any better, right? 101%
Yeah.
probably they're cooking the books.
No.
So let's shift to current state at CyberHoot then, because I see you looking at your watch. I got the same one. Is it telling you to stand up?
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
how do you feel right now? It's my, take a mental note of how you feel.
Well, hopefully very happy and enjoying the conversation.
I'm loving it.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, good. So current state at CyberHoot, when you look at the company, it's been growing really well. What specifically has been working really well at CyberHoot for its success?
Well, we've had a number of different successful approaches to things, right? We've got a great partnership with a MSP franchising system, CMIT Solutions. They have a wonderful franchise model. They're all across the United States. We've been partnered with them for 6 years now, 5 years now. And so it's part of their onboarding is to expose them to CyberHoot. They don't have, no one has to use CyberHoot at CMIT Solutions as a franchise, but it's recommended because we bring stability to their MSPs. We bring client retention, right? It's pretty clear people enjoy doing the phishing simulations and the videos that we provide, and that builds value. When you're an MSP, value to each individual end user is critical to your success as an MSP, to client retention and to delivering value added services over the long term. So that partnership is an example of a highly successful approach that we have at CyberHoot. And we're looking for more partnerships. In fact, Goodwill, we are desperately trying to find a way to offer a nationwide program to all the Goodwills, giving the success we've had with this one opportunity and the need for positive cyber literacy training across all of their locations. So we're always seeking partnerships of that sort. We also have third-party partnerships with companies that operate peripherally to CyberHoot. So, for example, there are companies out there that deliver other IT services, and they use our API to pull in our video and our Hootfish trainings into their platform and deliver it. That's another successful strategy that we've had. We do sell direct to businesses, but those are not our primary because we don't want to compete or undercut any of our MSPs or our reseller channels. We give it away free. Here's a new strategy, another strategy we have, which is for individuals, they can sign up for CyberHoot. All the things you would get in the pro version or the company version, the paid version, are available to individuals. And so if someone's listening to this and says, oh, maybe I'll give it a try, maybe I'll boost my cyber literacy skills and evaluate CyberHoot, you can go to cyberhoot.com/individuals and register for free. And you'll get all of the Hootfish exercises, all of our annual 12 video program delivered to your inbox for you to take. There's no trickery involved. There's no worrisome, stress involved. It's all positive reinforcement of the behaviors you need more of to protect yourself both personally and professionally. And our hope there, quite honestly, Darren, is that if enough people are enrolled as direct individuals, they will bring it to their companies and say, hey, you need to take a look at this. I'm tired of being tricked with fake emails, phishing tests that Craig tells me don't actually teach me what I need to know at CyberHoot, and teach me the real typo squatting, the real I for an L or the M turned into an R and an N or an S added to our domain name. And teach me those real skills because we can't afford a breach at our company. And so that's the hope there.
And for that example, for individuals signing up, good plug, by the way. Well done. Do
Thank you.
you, is that a freemium to where it's free for like 30 days and they have to pay some sort of fee, or is it actually
It's free
a
for
free
life.
account? Free for
Free
life.
account for
Okay.
life for an individual. We take that off of the approach that many password managers have taken, right? We're not reinventing the wheel. We're really taking our lead from some of the companies we admire. You can get a free personal version of a half dozen password managers out there. And they are maybe not, they might be feature limited. We're not feature limiting anything at CyberHoot. But they will allow, well, actually, that's not true. You do get the dark web, but you don't get the governance policy management in the free version. So there are a few features you would miss. But the idea is the more you expose the positive way of doing things, maybe we can even shift the entire industry as a whole and get more companies that do deliver awareness training into a positive reinforcement approach, because cybersecurity is a little bit lost in that direction of punishment, thinking it's the only way or it's the best way, and it's the worst way to change behavior. So maybe we can also shift the whole industry by giving it away for free for an extended period of time.
Well, that'll be a creative idea to bring back to the investors, right? You never
Yeah.
know. It
Yeah,
might be the next billion-dollar idea.
we hope so.
So on the flip side, those are all the things going well. Where does the most challenging events, things that CyberHoot is going through as part of their growth?
Customer acquisition and customer retention are two areas we're really focused on now, because if you haven't heard about CyberHoot, you won't sign up. It's interesting. We track, and we recently added tracking to all of the things we do, whether it's a referral from our website, and someone books a meeting. We know, oh, they were on our website and they booked a meeting because we can track that.
Mhm.
ChatGPT often is referring people to us now because we've spent so much time working with ChatGPT to write white papers, research this psychology study, and tell us how it ties to positive reinforcement in a cybersecurity training. And we can write wonderful white papers with it. And it internalizes that. ChatGPT internalizes, hey, positive reinforcement in cybersecurity, go to CyberHoot. So those kinds of things. So new customer acquisition is a challenge for us because we don't have outside funding to be at every cybersecurity conference and to have all kinds of lead gen work, top of funnel work. So we're trying to figure that out a little bit. We're expanding in various ways. On the other side, customer retention, once folks are in CyberHoot, are we doing a good enough job to move them? There's a book written by, I don't know if I have it here. I might have his name. Yeah, I do have it here. Joey Coleman, Never Lose a Customer Again. He talks about 8 stages that customers that you do acquire go through, starting with assessing us and then admitting they need us and affirming, yeah, we're going to buy, and activating them. So we're trying to put engagement in the post sales relationship with our customers to move them all the way from the beginning of assessing us and saying, yes, that makes sense, we'll buy you, we'll use you, through acclimating, and they have an A for everything, accomplish things, adopting, and ultimately advocating for CyberHoot. The ultimate customer is someone that advocates with their friends, family, other colleagues, other businesses, write reviews for you on different websites once they get to the advocate stage. And we have quite a few of those already, but we want to make everyone go through that process. And so we're trying very diligently now to work through retention strategies to reduce the churn if there is. It's not high, but it could be better. Everybody wants to keep your retention up as high as possible.
Okay. So when you talk about focusing on it diligently, like the book that you just referenced, are there tactics from that book that you're implementing right now in your company?
Yes, there are tactics, and we're implementing just a number of outreach. We've written white papers that basically help people talk about positive reinforcement. Think about it this way: when an industry is focused on punishing bad behaviors, and there's literally 50, 60 companies talking about that's the way to do it, and they have a lot of big budgets to market the idea. When you come along and say it's broken, it doesn't work well, and even though we have empirical research studies that say it's broken and it doesn't work well, people don't, they turn a blind eye to us sometimes. They're like, yeah, that's just okay. You guys can do that. But I have my cyber insurance says I have to do fake email phish testing. Reality check. No, it doesn't. It says you need to engage your users and teach them how phishing works. It does not say in any cyber insurance policy I've ever written, and we've partnered with cyber insurance companies in the United States and in Australia and all over the world, and they love what we do because the intelligence we bring is a score for every user in your platform on phishing versus only those who open an email in every other platform. So the tricks that we're bringing to market to the companies out there is writing white papers to explain these analogies, right? From dog training to parenting, right? Another great analogy is parenting a child. If they have a temper tantrum, you don't punish the temper tantrum, you teach coping skills. And then you reward those coping skills when you see them in the future. And guess what? Your child then begins to behave that way instead of having temper tantrums. So you can look in any corner of society for analogies that work with positive reinforcement, and then suddenly people get it. They understand that cyber literacy doesn't have to be a negative experience, it could be a very positive one. And that's really our primary focus in engaging with those companies that have already decided to use us, to just share white paper and case studies and real examples of how companies have succeeded in this space, so that they have that confidence, and that grows into, if they ask their employees, yeah, I actually enjoy not being tricked. I enjoy learning this rubric, and I now feel much more prepared for the world we live in and confident. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy eventually once you get that, activation energy in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that definitely also just takes time. There's some things you can't rush that just comes with doing the work, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so that was all current. So let's talk about future now. So looking ahead, where are you trying to get CyberHoot in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, it's just rapid growth, right? We want to get more partnerships. I'm in discussions with a number of large organizations out there about expanding our use. We have built in the ability for us to partner with even company entities like AARP, right? There's a huge problem in the world today of elder financial abuse. I was literally on the phone this weekend with my brothers about how we can protect my mom, who is 80 and has trouble with financials, banking, and that sort of thing, just because her faculties aren't what they were 20 years ago. And how do we help protect her? Well, we could partner with AARP as a service offering and send them the free version of things, obviously with a small reimbursement to us, but make it a membership benefit, right? Or AAA, or any organization like that that is looking to expand the value of their relationship with their customers, because we have an advantage at CyberHoot that no one else does. Every other vendor that's sending fake email phishing tests has to have administrative rights to the technology protecting that inbox. We do not. CyberHoot can be a bolt-on via our API that just sends assignment after assignment to any of your clients and their users without modifying any tech stack, because we are not triggering, oh, this email is a phishing attack. Look at it, says it's Microsoft, but it's not. There's a different domain. No, we're not doing that. We're saying we are CyberHoot. Here is your assignment. Visit the CyberHoot website to complete it. It happens to be a phishing simulation there, but none of the technology has to be holes punched through. It just works. So we are the ideal business partner of any company out there that wants to add value and safety and security to their customers. And so that's our value prop to growth, right? In addition to that, so we've got these large partnerships, we've got ideas around further improvements, right? We can gamify our exercises even more, right? So I like to play hockey. I don't like going to the gym, but I recognize the value of being in shape. When I play hockey, I am going to the gym essentially, but I'm not feeling like it's a workout or it's doldrums. It's painful. I have to go and I have to spend my hour there and do this. I'm having a social great time with a bunch of people I love, and we play hockey and I get exercise, but it's not feeling like exercise, right? So we take that analogy and we apply, that's gamification at its finest for working out. We take that and we apply it to CyberHoot. We're toying with ideas around additional gamification in our platform, which allows you to compete with employees in your firm at your discretion, almost like a social network approach where you can invite your colleagues to compete with you on growing your cyber literacy skills with a little tiny gamification in that space. So we're looking at all sorts of different ways to improve the experience that makes it less work-like, more fun and gaming-like, so that people gain these skills without realizing it, right? And at the end of the day, they don't say, "Oh, did you do your hooting? Did you do your hoots?" No, they're like, "Hey, everybody's done their hoots this week. That's fantastic. Everybody, this is a great thing."
Yep. No, I totally get that. And it's funny you mentioned hockey. For me, it's tennis. It's the same thing because running is not fun.
No.
Which brings up the question: do you have all your teeth still, or have you lost any to a hockey puck or a
Uh,
crosscheck?
well, I do have an implant on this one here.
Okay.
But that was from a playground accident when I was like 9 years old. My
Ah,
dad
okay.
was not happy as a dentist for me to walk home with a tooth in my hand. I smashed it on a metal bar somewhere, but that's a different story for another day. I've not
Fair,
lost teeth
fair
in my
enough.
head from hockey.
All right. So when you look at CyberHoot, if you had a magic wand that could fix one thing, what is the key thing that's holding CyberHoot back from getting to their next level?
There's, I want to say there's really nothing holding us back, but I would say, here's what I would say. We actually have 3 universities right now partnered with us and they have an IRB approved study. That's an internal review board, is what IRB stands for. So their university oversight has said, yes, partner with CyberHoot to do a study on both the affect and the effect of Hootfish on phishing, learning how phishing works. And we just have been working on this for a long time. And I think once we get empirical evidence from this study that says CyberHoot performs better, people enjoy it more, that's going to be the recipe for just almost vertical growth with the mid-market enterprises of the world, because they're all struggling with a morale issue. When they just ramp up and turn it's like it's like putting people on the rack, right? We got to test them every single day and stretch them out to make sure they don't click on anything. Because again, when you're using punishment, you have to always have the threat of punishment front and center for it to work. People don't enjoy it. Morale is suffering. People say, well, it's the cost of doing business because the alternatives are so much worse. Well, actually, no, it's not. And here's some evidence that you can do it both by rewarding good behaviors and people enjoy it more and the results are better. So once we have that empirical research study, perhaps paired with our patent, which hopefully will get approved eventually, that will lead to some meteoric growth
Gotcha.
because there's no one that can argue against facts and evidence, empirical evidence. This works better.
Yeah, well, I mean, patent pending is just seems to be as important. I mean, it's pretty rare when you pick up anything and it says patent approved, right? Almost
Yeah.
every time you're looking at anything, it almost always says patent pending with a number on there. So I get
Yeah.
that wait
Well, we've
time.
had that for a couple years, but we're not happy with that. We want to get the actual patent so that ultimately, if someone does buy us, then they have deep enough pockets, they can enforce the patent protection, right?
Right. And so then even talking about that, the people that say that I believe it's 70% of statistics are all incorrect anyway. So when you go on data and that's their mindset, how do you switch them around on that?
Well, that was one of the criticisms, honestly, about this presentation at Black Hat this year is that, why are we allowing the vendors to present the statistics that they handpick to tell the story of how successful they are at teaching these things, right? And this is why we've partnered with cybersecurity researchers at universities to study what we do. We're not doing the study ourselves. It's university, established cybersecurity researchers who have studied fake email phishing, and they recognize that it's a little bit cumbersome. It doesn't work as well as we would like. And they've seen what we do. And so having a third party do the statistics is far better to have that arm's length, results presented versus what this study at Black Hat said is that the vendors are presenting their own data. They're cherry picking numbers to say this works better, this works great. But in our experience, 1.7% is all we could tease out of it. It does not work better, and people don't enjoy it. And there's still 55% of the users in a 19,000 person company clicked on it. That's 10,000 clicks. It's ridiculous, right? You're never going to defend against that, which is what we see in the news every day. People are not defending properly, you know? So
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And especially 10,000, that's way too many vectors to cover. It's one thing if one person clicks, that's already hard enough. But if you got 10,000, I
yeah,
mean, that's practically undefendable at that point, which is where
it
the
is.
education is so important.
Yep.
So, Craig, we're getting close to the end of all this. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you. I really appreciate the conversation so far. It's been very valuable, but also the way that CyberHoot and you are the visionaries of rethinking security training. To me, it feels like it's a fresh, needed approach in the industry because you're right. Every company I've been in does the same thing. You accidentally click that link one time and the immediate reaction is just visceral, right? It's like, bleep. I got to do this training because I accidentally clicked that one link. And especially when they're doing really well, right? Like they've been doing it great over and over and over for maybe months, and then they hit it the one time,
Yep.
right? It's kind of like that example of Weinstein, I think it was, where he did 9 times 1 equals 8, and then 9 times 2 equals, and he did all the rest of them correct. But the class was so busy making fun of that one mistake at the beginning that they didn't even pay attention to the rest.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting example. But before we close out, you can list the website you mentioned before, or if you wanted to go somewhere else. But where can our listeners go if they want to learn more about CyberHoot and try out some of the training themselves?
Well, cyberhoot.com allows you to book a meeting with us and learn about our product offerings. You can also sign up for free at cyberhoot.com/individuals with an S. We have a monthly newsletter and a weekly blog. So if you visit the blog each week, it's cyberhoot.com/blog. But our monthly newsletter summarizes the blog. It also includes some tips and best practices and any development that we've made in our platform. So you can register for that newsletter. We have a cybersecurity library at cyberhoot.com/cybrary, CYB, cybrary, RARY. And there's about 1,000 different cybersecurity terms explained in layperson terminology with videos, with what does this mean? How important is it? So examples being, what's an NFT, a non-fungible token? There was a lot of heat and excitement about that a couple years ago. What's a Bitcoin? What is encryption, etc. We have 1,000 things there that you could learn and read about or use to explain things to your colleagues. If you're in IT and you have a colleague saying, tell me what's an NFT, well, just send them the link to CyberHoot. You're good to go. So, but if you want to just send an email sales@cyberhoot.com, and we'll get you scheduled for a conversation as fast as we can.
All right, perfect, Craig. That was impressive. You had all those links ready to go. So well done. For everybody else, thank you for listening. Again, like Craig said, you can go to cyberhoot.com, check out their gamified security awareness training, their phishing simulations, and even more free resources, just like you mentioned. Craig, again, personally, thank you so much for your time and sharing all this invaluable information in your stories. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to our audience, thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep building smarter, humanized prevention in order to keep our securities high. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Darren.
Hey there, it's Darren from The Digital Shift. I wanted to take a moment to thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the links in the description to learn even more information of everything we went over today. But if you enjoyed this podcast, then you are absolutely going to love this one. And if you're looking to look deeper into the technology that we go over in these videos, then go ahead and check out this one here. Regardless of which one you pick, you're going to walk away with something new. As always, I'll talk to you in the next one, and keep being awesome.